Well, g'day folks. Welcome back to another video. Thanks to those of you who subscribe. Tom Dono in particular, you're a legend, mate. It's a pretty dreary old day here in Jindabyne, so I thought today we could talk about a pretty important topic and something that you should be carrying on you regardless of what you're doing in the outdoors, and that's this thing, your first aid kit. When we go outside, we're exposing ourselves to the risk of an injury, whether that's sunburn, rolling your ankle, breaking a wrist, or being bitten by a snake. The more time we spend outdoors, the better we need to become at identifying certain risks and packing this in accordingly. There's a few ways you can increase your ability to identify risks, and the first is going to be to do a first aid course. If you spend a lot of time in the outdoors, I really would recommend doing some form of first aid training. There's three main sort of sets here in Australia. You've got provide first aid, and that's typically in a workplace setting that training would occur, and you're typically providing first aid for the length of time it takes to a paramedic to arrive in the city, which might be 20 minutes. Then you have your remote area first aid, and that's when you're providing first aid for a longer period of time, potentially up to an hour, in a more remote setting where it takes a paramedic longer to arrive. And then you have your wilderness first aid, whereby you're looking at providing care from 2 hours to 2 days while waiting for medical help to arrive. I'd really recommend just having a look at remote area first aid if you live in Australia and spend a lot of time in the outdoors. I think it's a great skill to bolster your ability to survive longer outside. The second thing you can do is, before you start an activity, you can brainstorm a few risks and write them down. And when you're out there, you can just be really conscious of the risks when you're outdoors that you might be encountering, and how you would react if you were to become in trouble while out there. And then I like to ask myself a set of questions that allow me to pack this thing. And the first question is, what activity am I doing? Am I canyoning? Am I rock climbing or abseiling? Am I going on a bushwalk? Am I canoeing? There's going to be inherent risks with each activity, and it's important to understand the risks that you're going to encounter in each activity. Second thing I like to ask is, who am I with? Am I traveling with a really competent group of people? Am I traveling with people who aren't as confident or competent in the outdoors? The people that I'm with, they have pre-existing medical conditions, things like diabetes, asthma, epilepsy. Are they prone to certain injuries? And are they allergic to anything? So pretty key questions that will allow you to pack your first aid. The third question is, how long am I going for? Am I just going out for an afternoon? Or am I going out for a multi-day bushwalk? That's really going to impact on how much first aid gear that I carry. The fourth question is, how far away am I going to be from medical help? If I'm going for a bushwalk in the Sydney region, it's quite likely that I'll get help to me pretty quick. Whereas if I'm in a much more remote Blue Mountains area, for example, it might take longer for medical help, medical assistance to reach me. Before we move on to individual items to put in your first aid kit, I just want to make a really important point for me, is that the more comfortable you are in an outdoor setting, the less your first aid kit is you're not worrying about yourself. You tend to be worrying more about the people in your group, and what's more likely is you might come across other people who have sustained injuries who aren't part of your group. And if you've got a really solid first aid kit and the ability to provide first aid to a good level, you're really going to help out other people in the outdoors, which I think is really important. So now we're going to open this up. I'm going to break our first aid kit into a couple of different compartments, which we can tinker with depending on what we're doing. Okay, so this is what I would say is a pretty stock standard first aid kit. First thing we've got to remember when we are providing first aid to someone is to keep ourselves safe. So the first thing we need to do, things like latex gloves, a face mask, and it's super windy here, so everything keeps blowing away. But I've also got a CPR mask as well, which is here. I'm just going to start packing this stuff away as we go, because otherwise it's just going to blow away. But that's our first kit, is our personal safety kit. Then we're going to move on to trauma, whereby we're trying to keep a wound clean while stopping the bleeding. So for this stuff we have lots of wound dressings here, as well as things like gauze swabs, lots of these. I've got some burn aid here as well, an iPad, alcohol wipes, got some Benadine, some antiseptic cream, and I've got some saline solution so that I can clean a wound. Included in that, a lot of these things can sort of be used in different categories. In here I've got a bunch of plasters or band-aids as well, and some more sort of non-adhesive dressings that I can use, as well as things like these, which I can use to apply pressure to stop bleeding, and snake bandage here as well, which is pretty important in Australia. And then again, just some more sort of compression bandages here. Then we're going to move on to splint kit. So if we were to break an ankle, break a leg, break an arm, anything like that, something like this is quite useful. This is a SAM splint. We can basically unfurl all these, and we can use it on things like wrists, basically just to keep the injury in a comfortable position. Now with these SAM splints, you can also use things like cardboard as well, anything really that you have on you. These are quite heavy and bulky. To keep these in place, I've got a bunch of triangular bandages as well, which will allow me to keep the wound in a position, or keep the injury in a position that's not going to cause further harm to someone. I've got a blister kit here as well. I've got quite a simple blister kit. I've got just some strapping tape here. I've got some Fixamol, which I'll use as well, and then I've got this stuff, which is a hydrating gel. And in a future video I'm gonna talk about how I sort my blisters out. I've also got all these band-aids in here, plasters, which can be used for my blister kit as well. And then we're going to go on to things. So I've got some very basic medication here. I've got some aspirin, I've got paracetamol, I've got antihistamines, and I've got some laxatives as well, which, you know, might not be the best to use. That all lives in there. I've also got some Lemsip, cold and flu stuff, which is great because it's can be served as a warm drink with lots of paracetamol in it to basically keep someone comfortable. So these are for these sort of it's more for comfort, these medications. There's a few other things as well which you can include, which will make your life easier. Things like a little pair of scissors. I've got this thing here, which is just it's got a sharp point on this side and a little thing to sort of dig things out on this. And then I also have a notepad. This notepad's going to allow me to write any observations that I have of someone that I'm dealing with, and then I can put all this information down, and if I do need to call for help, then I've got this information ready to go. This means that the paramedics or whoever's going to be arriving has a lot of information already, so they're coming into a situation where they already know what's happening. You can also get these little things, and this is just a little description of things to do. This is your classic Dr. ABC. And then if you like as well, you can carry sort of a pocket first aid book as well. Something like this is quite heavy, so you might just photocopy it, some sort of pages that you think are relevant. Yeah, that's pretty much the basics. The more time you're spending outdoors, you need a more extensive trauma kit, which is going to allow you to deal with multiple injuries potentially over multiple days before pickup might be initiated. And then if you're traveling with people with allergies, it's also important to carry an allergy kit as well, and that's things like an EpiPen, more antihistamines, things that they might they might carry themselves though. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If I get this back up here, give a good send off. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you got some information out of that. My sort of main issue with the first aid kit is there's no right or wrong answer. You need to be tailoring it to whatever it is you're doing, how long you're out there, those things we addressed earlier in the video. Otherwise you're carrying too much stuff or you're carrying not enough stuff. No one wants to carry more than they have to. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. See you on the next one.